Now, with the release of Yidhari and us entering the second phase of version 2.3, it does mean the very next featured character to expect will be Dialyn as our first character of version 2.4. Chances are most players have likely exhausted their polychromes on the current version banners given the sheer amount of value they hold. But for those that are specifically after a stun character that is expected to have great synergy with attackers and rupture characters, Dialyn is going to be a character you will definitely want to consider next version update. So with that said, I'll be going over the materials you would require to prepare for Dialyn in advance, team synergies you may want to consider, viable W engines, disk drive builds to utilize, and for when we do reach version 2.4, whether or not you should summon for Dialyn. As always, if you are interested in more ZenlessZoneZero content, would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. But just before we do begin, if you are in need of some additional monochrome so you can secure an upcoming character or two, then you may want to check out this sponsor. Lootbar is a reliable and secure top-up platform that allows you to pick up game currency for an even lower price than in-game. Such as with ZenlessZoneZero, you are able to pick up selected items with up to 23% off. So if you are thinking about picking up some polychromes or even simply just renewing your Internet membership, then you may as well pick it up using Lootbar to save some money. All you need to do is head to the website and click on whichever pack you would like to pick up, then fill out your game account UID and server region, choose your preferred payment method, and in a couple of minutes you will receive your polychromes. Also, as usual, the double top-up bonus will be provided even when going through Lootbar, so you aren't missing out. Lastly, as of now, new users are eligible for a 10% off coupon along with a bunch of other coupons for an extra discount. So again, if you are looking for a quick and safer way to pick up discounted game currency than other websites, be sure to check out Lootbar through the link in the description. Now diving into this with the fact Dialyn is going to be our first premium physical stun agent, which immediately means she will need the usual amount of physical chips and stun certification seals in order to ascend her and max out her skills. In addition to that, she will require a total of 60 stealth phantom drops from the Jane Expert Challenge, alongside a total of 9 Exuvia of refinement drops from the Miasma Priest Notorious Hunt. Those will of course be accompanied by 5 hamster cage passes and 3.7 million dennies if you're intending to completely max out Dialyn on release, which is going to be achievable considering all of the materials she does require is currently available. As for team compositions and Dialyn's versatility, as mentioned, she is going to be a premium physical stun agent, and with the fact she is releasing alongside Banyue, which is a rupture DPS, it means similar to Jufufu that Dialyn will most likely be able to synergize with attackers and rupture agents. That's alongside the fact stun agents such as Jufufu and Trigger do still excel with their off-field capabilities. It leads to the assumption Dialyn won't really be dealing damage and days off-field, but instead would inflict a considerable amount of days and damage within a short window whilst on field, so that would provide some indication towards the sort of compositions Dialyn can slot into, such as a potential composition consisting of Banyue, Dialyn, and Lucia. Now Banyue has been speculated to be quite similar to Yi Zhuan as a rupture DPS that will take up quite a bit of field time, considering he is releasing not too long after Yidhari, which is more of a burst DPS. So with Banyue taking up lengthy amounts of field time to complete his combos, stun agents such as Dialyn would then be quite synergistic since she will provide him with the time he does require, although it's obviously expected that Dialyn will also provide considerable damage bonuses such as a general damage increase and a bonus towards either crit rate or crit damage. Perhaps there will even be a small bonus towards sheer force to double down on the synergy between her and Banyue, alongside a significant increase towards the stun damage multiplier so that any DPS alongside Dialyn would greatly benefit. So pretty much Dialyn should be one of, if not the best stun agent for Banyue, which is going to be alongside Lucia, also buffing Banyue's damage through the amount of bonuses she does provide towards rupture agents, ultimately leading to this team revolving around juicing Banyue to the max and to allow him to deal massive amounts of damage as a hyper carry. Now it is pretty fair for characters such as Yi Zhuan, Yidhari, and Manato to be seen as alternative options to Banyue when alongside Dialyn and Lucia, given each of them can be utilized as rupture Rupture main DPS characters and would be able to deal great levels of damage when alongside 2 characters supporting them. Of course, with Yuzuha being the most similar to Banyue, given they are going to share the trait in requiring a lot of field time, it would mean she will be the best alternative to utilize as a Rupture DPS and the one that should feel closest to Banyue's playstyle. Now that isn't to say Yidhari wouldn't be great since she will be able to synergize with Dialyn due to the potential buffs she provides, but Yuzuha should feel the best when using an alternative Rupture DPS to Banyue when alongside Dialyn. Now as for the attackers that could synergize with Dialyn, it is pretty much going to be the same case with the fact those that do take up a lot of field time will synergize the best with Dialyn, which means attackers such as Evelyn, Soldier Anby, Ellen and Soldier 11 would synergize quite well. Of course, each of these attackers will definitely be much better alongside another stun agent or in a certain composition that doesn't include Dialyn. But if you perhaps don't have Jufufu for Evelyn for example, then Dialyn could step in as an alternative stun agent and allow Evelyn to deal considerable damage. So ultimately, you could see Dialyn as the physical version of Jufufu, given both characters are able to synergize with attackers and Rupture agents. But of course, there will be some standout differences such as Jufufu being able to deal damage off field and with Dialyn being even more tailored towards Rupture agents, which is pretty much the reason towards Dialyn still being a fantastic stun agent you might want to consider even if you do already have a few other premium stun agents. Moving on to W engines, and before anything I do have to say the signature as usual will provide the most value, considering it will allow Dialyn to perform at her best and may potentially provide even more buffs towards her allies. But with the fact that she is a stun agent, it means it wouldn't be as necessary in comparison to a W engine made for a DPS. So that alongside the fact there are some alternative W engines worth using in place of the signature, it would mean unless you do have intentions of utilizing Dialyn for as long as you can and perhaps do like her playstyle or just the character herself, the signature can then be skipped, and I reckon most players will be skipping specifically due to not having enough polychromes after coming out of the current version. So then as with the alternatives, there would firstly be the Hellfire Gears as a solid choice, given it increases energy regen when off field, and when using an EX special attack the equipper's impact is increased by up to a max of 20%. So with the fact Dialyn should be spending most of the time off field as she does switch onto the field for a brief moment, the Hellfire Gears would then be a solid option and one that many players may already have due to being a standard banner W engine. Additionally, there is the Restraint that has a passive allowing any stun agent regardless of attribute to fully utilize, given it will buff the damage and days of basic attacks when attacks hit the enemy and can stack up to 5 times. So this would be another solid alternative, but the only factor to consider would be that only the damage and days from basic attacks are increased, which means if Dialyn specializes in dealing most of her damage and days via special attacks, which is likely the case in order to not take up much field time, then the bonuses the Restraint provides wouldn't be as beneficial, but that can only be confirmed once she does release. Now those two are currently the only S rank options that wouldn't take up much field time to utilize the passive and by a character with any attribute, but there is also the Steam Oven as an A rank alternative that should be quite useful, considering the passive will provide a bonus towards impact stacking up to 8 times based on the energy accumulated, so it wouldn't take much time for the passive to be fully utilized, and especially when paired alongside the energy regen main stat. So those would be some of the W engines you can utilize for Dialyn, but as mentioned, if you're looking to utilize her at her best and provide as much value as possible to her allies, of course if you can afford to, it would then be reasonable to consider the signature W engine. As with the disk drive builds, there will be a clear choice of sets you may want to utilize, considering for pretty much every stun agent, the King of the Summit 4-piece set will be the one to definitely utilize given its effects. The 2-piece bonus does increase days of attacks by 6%, and as for the 4-piece bonus, it essentially allows the equipper to buff the crit damage of their allies by up to 30% whenever using an EX special attack or chain attack. The only requirement would be the equipper needs at least 50% crit rate in order to provide the crit damage bonus, which is going to be pretty easy to achieve with just disk drives alone. So again, like pretty much every other stun agent, the King of the Summit disk drive set is going to be the best universal 4-piece set to utilize. Now alongside that set, there would be a few options to use such as the Swing Jazz and Moonlight Lullaby sets for the additional energy regen, the Shockstar Disco set for the additional impact bonus, and the Fanged Metal set for the physical damage bonus. Now amongst these options, the Swing Jazz and the Moonlight Lullaby will be the clear choice, case, since they will ensure Dialyn will have enough energy to deal as much damage and days as possible within the short window on field. Although the impact bonus from the Shock Star set is still going to be great to enable even more days to be inflicted. But as for the Fanged Metal and for any other damage increase sets, they aren't going to be recommended as much as the prior sets, given you aren't really using Dialyn for her DPS, even though she is still going to be expected to deal considerable damage. So ultimately, the King of the Summit 4P set and either the Swing Jazz or Moonlight Lullaby sets will be the optimal build to prioritize. Now, as for the stats to focus on obtaining for those disk drives, the 4th disk drive will definitely want crit rate due to the King of the Summit's crit rate requirement. The 5th disk drive would be fine with either physical damage bonus or attack percent, and the final disk drive will most likely want energy regen. As for the substats, crit rate and crit damage would be priority as standard and would be followed up with attack percent, flat attack or pen for a perfect disk drive. Overall, Dialyn is going to be quite a solid stun agent, and especially with the fact that she does synergize with both attackers and rupture agents incredibly well. Of course, with being able to provide buffs such as a stun damage multiplier, crit bonuses, and possibly a bonus towards sheer force, it will allow Dialyn to be quite versatile and synergize within various compositions, but also will have great long-term value as a stacked stun agent. Now, with those traits, you can definitely consider Dialyn for your account even if you do already have other premium stun agents. But to be clear, she wouldn't be as valuable to your account if you do already have characters such as Jufufu and Trigger, given they already provide fantastic value to various compositions and so would reduce the value of another stun agent joining your roster. So really, you shouldn't feel that inclined to pull another stun agent even if they are going to be a bit more tailored towards certain units you may use often, especially with the fact there will always be alternatives to use and will be good enough to allow you to clear all content in the game. However, as usual, if you are looking to maximize the potential of certain characters such as Banyue in specific, only then, alongside obviously if you don't have any premium stun agents, will Dialyn be necessary for your account. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more ZenlessZoneZero content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also, drop a comment down below on whether you will be pulling for Dialyn or will you be skipping. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.